Get ready to ride along for another exciting episode of No Driving Gloves, where Derek, John, and Will use over 75 years combined industry knowledge to bring you a bare-knuckled view on the collector car hobby. So let's get rolling. We're here for another wonderful episode of No Driving Gloves. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well.
Fantastic.
Nothing big, nothing exciting happening in the world.
Just rain. Tropical depression's hitting the Gulf, so, we'll get hammered in the next day or so.
Makes for a nice, wonderful, 90 degrees and 110% humidity in Alabama.
That's right.
Well, I think we discussed and we were going to explore the wonderful world of trucks. I think we'll go all the way back to little wooden-bodied things that were kind of coach-built, all the way up to wondering why people are paying $100,000 for a pickup truck to use as a tow rig.
Because it's fancy, John. Because it's fancy.
That's because my tushy's comfortable in that leather.
With air conditioning.
Are y'all making fun of me already?
Yes.
The only option my old F-150 didn't have was the refrigerator. So.
I have a good explanation why we spend $70,000 for a tow rig.
Because you're in it a long time.
Yeah. When you drive from Alabama to California, air-conditioned seats are really nice.
Now, do you have the optional, toilet stall in there as well, or no?
Yeah, it's called a Mountain Dew bottle.
Nice.
No, you learn after many nights on the road you don't choose a Mountain Dew bottle, preferably a Pepsi.
You just got to mark it with a Sharpie. Mark the lid,
The driver gets mad at you when he turns a dome light on while you're checking.
I actually prefer the Frappuccino bottles. They have a little wider mouth.
So, trucks, right? We were going to talk about trucks.
Yeah, trucks. Here we go.
How about this? How many of us? I drive a 2010 Ford F-150 as essentially, let's call it one of my daily drivers. Do both you guys? I know, Will, you've got a truck. I know, John, you've had trucks in the past, but do you both have trucks currently?
Yeah, I have a 03 Chevrolet 1500 short wide bed that is essentially my daily driver, and a 2016 3500 dually Chevrolet that we pull our trailers with and do a lot of parts chasing and stuff like that with.
Now I got rid of my I had a I go through cars so fast. I apologize. I had a 14 F-150 for a while, and it's become a Ford Edge Sport right now because it had cool wheels, and I was getting my oil changed. So, so that's what I'm driving now, and we might go back to a pickup truck. I seem to go every other car is a pickup truck for some reason.
The most important time in life to get a new vehicle is at an oil change or when you need new tires. I'm just saying.
There you go.
Well, what car? The F-150 I had was the first car in my life that I ever put a second set of tires on.
Wow.
So, and I'm a stickler on bald tires, so yeah, like I say, I usually get a new car about once a year. It's an expensive hobby, but it's cheaper than cocaine.
Have you ever just put a pair on a vehicle?
No.
You need to learn how to massage that the brake pedal and the gas pedal and have a little fun every once in a while.
I have rotated tires before. And the Ford Edge I have, I did put a set of tires on it too, but it came with these really soft Pirellis, and they're 22-inch factory wheels, which is no longer available from Ford because those tires hurt to buy.
Oh, yeah.
Will rotates tires too. It's just usually at like 7,000 RPM, 60, 70 mile an hour, standing in one spot.
So. You daggone right. You ought to see our driveway at the shop. It looks kind of like a drag strip.
Uh, I've had one car I've put two clutches in, but not tires. That was one of my first manual transmissions I owned.
I would hope it would be one of your first ones. Oh, back to trucks.
That might actually be a lie if I think about it, because when I bought my '03 S10, I bought it brand new with the intention of reliving my high school days and making it a lowrider. Within the first 500 miles, I had dropped it and bought a set of American Racing Torque Thrust 2s, put those on with some tires. So I guess there was a set there too, but I never did really wear out the first set. When I sold the truck, they went with it. So
We'll give that one to you. You hadn't ever wore out a set of tires and then replaced them on a vehicle.
yeah, I just replaced the vehicle.
Yeah, just replace the vehicle. Oh. So, one of the things that is kind of interesting to me is how trucks have evolved from being strictly a work vehicle. I mean, that's all they used to be, and now, I mean, look at us. We all drive trucks. I mean, you can't go to the grocery store and half the vehicles in the parking lot are trucks. They're just so comfortable and practical, and
There's all that room in the back for groceries.
that's right. That's right.
Well, with my F-150, it was a four-door Lariat, and it's now sold by Ford as a factory accessory, the hard tonneau that folds up into three pieces. Best tonneau I've ever owned on a truck. Made it a watertight bed, and driving that around, my thought was it was a Grand Marquis. There is no full-size four-door vehicles that will comfortably seat 5 or 6. And the truck's kind of taken that place, and you put that hard bed cover on it, you've got a nice sized trunk, you've got a comfortable vehicle to drive. Part of I think the reason trucks have went the way they have is the market doesn't provide anything. I mean, even a big Cadillac's a tight car for 5 people. So
That's true. That is true. And, so many people have, extracurricular activities, whether it's kayaking or camping or, you just throw everything in the bed of your truck and go. And you don't think nothing about it.
Collecting classic and antique cars and having to, pull a trailer and haul a bunch of parts around and go random places every other weekend and find some new part or new car to bring home.
That's right.
I don't know how people live without a truck having one so often. With the SUV I have now, I did go out and I bought, one of those utility trailers from one of the big box stores, and I hitch it behind it. It'll hold 3,500 pounds. The SUV will tow 3,500, and the load height's easier. But you've got to have something like that. It seems in today's world of do-it-yourself, you want to do a project at home. For the wife, or you want to build yourself a new sofa or anything, go to the lumber yard. The furniture stores even require you anymore. A lot of them. We bought I can't remember, things 98 inches by 98 inch painting for our entryway, but the furniture store wouldn't deliver it. We had to go pick it up, and you're not going to do that with an Aveo.
No.
Why does anyone need a 98 by 98 inch painting? That's my question.
When you build a shop in the backyard and the girlfriend says she needs a 98 by 98 inch painting, you don't ask why.
All right, I'll give you that.
And something else is, 15 years ago, there wasn't a lot of people restoring or hot rodding that many trucks. I mean, now Good Guys has its own class. They have a truck of the year early and a truck of the year late. I bought 2 pickup trucks in the last couple of weeks to build, restore, make a hot rod out of them, sell, whatever. I just bought them because they were a good price. And the C10 Chevrolets are. Man, it's crazy how hot those trucks are right now.
I've got a friend in northern Alabama. He's flipping C10s like crazy. It's kind of the bread and butter of his shop. He's always got one in there that he's doing something to. because as soon as it's done, it sells in a week. And that's the square body C10s. That's not even going to the 60s era, which again were hot. But I might disagree. Granted, good guys just introduced their categories in the last decade and a half. I think pickup trucks started to be cool. You've got to think back to some of the early Dodges from the 50s. What was it, the style side that they had that was kind of a cool truck? And jump 20 years ahead, you had the Little Red Express, which was the first cheat to the emissions laws, and that's where pickup trucks have been, is they've been a way to skirt the feds, I guess, because in 78, Little Red Express was the third fastest vehicle in the quarter mile sold in the United States. The Ferrari 308 and Porsche 928 were faster than it, and then it was a pickup truck because it was that 360 Police Interceptor with Ram Air. That truck existed, and then we had to jump to the late 90s when Shelby started to tune them. Dodge built the convertible Dakota because of the sport truck era. We had the 454 SS, the Cyclone, the Typhoon, and that really launched this sport truck stuff that we have. I think people started to get into the SUVs because the cars got small, and the pickup trucks were kind of the natural way to go because there was some utility to them. For years, they didn't have to meet the same crash standards. They didn't have to meet the same EPA economy standards. So they were a way for the manufacturers to build something to skirt those laws. But even with that to skirt, the public wanted the bigger vehicle. If the public wasn't buying them, even though they were cheating the law, there's no denying that the general public decided we wanted trucks and Americans want trucks.
Yeah, that's completely, I kind of think what happened, and it's interesting. We a couple of us, or maybe all of us, I can't remember what Will said. We've all owned Ford trucks, Ford F-150s. Will, I think you said you had a Ford at one time, didn't you?
I think I've had one Ford truck. It caught on fire.
I would say not on purpose.
Not on purpose. Okay.
No.
But you go back in time, and
one new Ford truck. Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
I've had some. I've had some older Ford trucks.
Yeah. But you go back in time. It's interesting because and of course Ford is kind of always been that best-selling truck in America. That's one of their big deals. But they're really the company. Henry Ford is really the person who introduces the truck to the general kind of public, life and culture in America with the Model T and the Model T truck. There's actually a Model T pickup that's created, and that is really the first truck in American history to be something that the general public is purchasing. The farmers or contractors at the time that need something like that. All of the trucks that were really built before that are your heavy duty commercial trucks for big industry, 1.5, 2 ton, all the way up. I mean, there were 6-ton trucks back in the early days that companies like White Motors was making. There was a company called Sandusky Trucks and Garford and all these different big truck companies, but they were building them for industry and big businesses. And it took Henry Ford kind of with the Model T idea of a car for the people to get a truck out for the people as well.
But the Model T truck, if I remember correctly, was a kind of a late introduction in the Model T model run.
Yes, that is came out later.
Prior to that, I mean, he saw the demand because you could buy a kit to convert your Model T business coupe or your whatever, I can't remember what Chevy called their vehicle at the time, to a pickup truck that the common man, the everyday person could use. And Henry Ford was the first really, I think, to react to it with something that was affordable and you could buy off the showroom floor. Ford's kind of run with it and developed it. Trying to think back, we got It's a Chevy that's converted into a depot hack, which is kind of the original type full-size van to move people around. I think it's a good point that Ford started it and ran with it for a while, and everybody followed suit. I've seen photos of even converted Packard pickup trucks and tow trucks and things all through the ages, but they were utilitarian vehicles and very sparse vehicles. Into the 50s and even the 60s and 70s, they were built as work trucks. I guess thinking, was it 76 or 77 that Ford introduced the Super Cab, which again brought the truck to more of the everyday person by giving them a little bit of extra cab space. Did Datsun beat them to that in 72? I'm trying to remember that. They had the little King cab that was like 8 inches longer, but Ford was the first one with that longer cab, and I think then Chevy beat them to the crew cabs or the four-door trucks. So,
I mean, I know I'm not exactly sure when air conditioning become an option for trucks, but I know we've done a '72 Super Cheyenne that was a factory air truck. That had to be I'm pretty sure that was a pretty rare option in '72 for a pickup truck to have air conditioning.
Yeah, I think it was mid to late '60s that a lot of trucks you start seeing air conditioning. And I have my grandfather's old '67 Chevy. It was a truck from out west, California, Arizona area, and it's got a factory air conditioning system on it. So it's right around that mid to late '60s, I think, that we start seeing that air conditioning come in, which again, creature comfort, which is aiming more towards making this more family friendly vehicle. In my opinion,
That's
when
right.
you start adding creature comforts like that.
Definitely, definitely.
well, there has to be the consumer demand, and maybe it was the site foreman that demanded the air conditioning in his truck, and he didn't care about his laborers and stuff. But yeah, air conditioning's worked its way into everything. But as you go through and watch the trucks develop, they do get a little bit more plush and a little bit more plush. But I think so did the cars. But they always seem to lag behind the cars until I really want to say into the 90s. I'm trying to remember the 87 Dodge I had. It was still a pretty basic vehicle. I mean, compared to what you would get in, say, a LeBaron or a K-Car LeBaron of that year. You think of what a Ford pickup was in comparison to a Taurus at that time. I'm trying to keep every man car, every such. But now if you go out and you look at an F-150 or a Ford Fusion, the F-150s, and not even in XLT trim, I won't say XL trim, but XLT trim, is probably feels like a more solid car than a Fusion.
Yeah, and I really do. I think it's my kind of tipping point as kind of an automotive historian from that angle of it. Trucks and kind of becoming the family usage vehicle is right around the mid 90s. I think it was 94. Dodge Ram came out with the new body style, with the lowered fenders, the high hood. But they did something interesting, and they introduced the third door opening extended cab, which allowed for easier access, like a back door, into the back of the truck. You move to the quad, the four door, quad cab style pickups, and I really think that's when we see a tipping point to the truck becoming really even more and more family friendly and family oriented.
I remember early 90s with the customizing that one of the, I say 88 and newer Chevys, I don't know, remember, that was done by Burt Reynolds, that was sold with the four-door and a custom bed on it. And because I always thought it would be cool to have a Suburban and cut the back off and make it into what basically became the Avalanche 15 years later. But in 94, my father bought one of those restyled Dodges, and I had a 96 or a 97 long bed extended cab as my daily driver. I had the year before they introduced that third door on the back, kind of a suicide door, and that really was an option I wish I had. Yeah, I think you're right. That's when they started to really become practical. 'Cause I remember early 90s with the customizing that one of the, I say 88 and newer Chevys, I don't know, remember, that was done by Burt Reynolds, that was sold with the four-door and a custom bed on it. And that really was an option I wish I had. I think you're right. That's when they started to really become practical. And then by the early 2000s, the crew cabs came in. Dodge did a restyle where they didn't really have a four door with two full size doors on each side. It was a door and a 3/4 of a door. Now there's so many cab configurations. It's unbelievable. It's hard to keep track of them.
You talk about crew cabs though, and especially a lot of the trucks now are the full 4-door crew, what we'd call crew cab trucks. I got a beef with them, which is I don't get them because the box is just so small. What's the use? Now you get that big of a cab and you have that little of a box, and it just, to me, the practicality of the utilitarian use of it is gone.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
The last truck that I had that was a 4-door, I bought a 3/4 ton just so I could have a regular size, full size bed. I wouldn't buy a 4-door 1500 just for the sheer fact of, heck, you couldn't get nothing in the bed of the truck. I mean, if you needed a full sheet of plywood, it's going to hang over. So I elected to buy a 3/4 ton just so I could have a full size bed.
And when I bought my '05 Dakota, which was a 4-door, I didn't think I wanted a full-size truck. That was the most annoying feature of that truck, was it had a 5-foot 5-inch bed. And everything I own is 5 foot 6 inches, it seemed.
There you go.
And I swore I'd never do it again. And I traded that truck at a time when gas was $4 a gallon, if we remember those wonderful days, on a new Ram 1500, because they were giving the things away at that point in time, that had the 4 doors and a 6-foot bed. And it was so nice. And then I had that truck for a year or two, and then went through some other vehicles like usual. And then I bought I guess it was a 12 F-150, now that I think about it, because I own two different 12 model year cars. So, funny, but bought one at the beginning of the year, one at the end. But had that one, and I made the same mistake with a 5.5-foot bed. But that, again, was the most annoying thing, because everything I wanted to transport wouldn't fit in the bed. When I was doing that oil change and stuff, and I ended up buying the Edge, I had about a month prior price buying the new 2015 new body style F-150, and the dealer said, "Oh no, we won't stock any with the 6-foot bed, but that is an option, but you've got to order it, and you can get a 4-door with a 6-foot bed, but it makes the truck so long they're hard to drive around in the city. At least makes the truck usable."
That's right. Yeah, I had a narrow bed S10 not long out of college. And I told myself when I got rid of that truck, I'm like, you know what? I will never own another small truck, and definitely not a narrow bed small truck. I mean, it was which it was so low to the ground, it was pretty well useless anyway. But I mean, you couldn't put nothing in the bed of that truck.
Yeah, mine was a standard bed and at least a little bit usable, but go back to when I had my little Red Express, which was a step side bed again, and I was moving, which, as we discussed recently, I have a lot of stuff when I move, and a couple buddies came over with their full-size bed pickups, full width, and you go, well, that is a pretty dinky bed when it's like that. You do notice that really quick.
Yeah, I had a 1998 Dodge Dakota extended cab during college and just after college. Same thing, it worked good. I mean, I hauled a lot of car parts in that truck, hauled a lot of different things in the bed of that truck, but it was very clear that a full-size truck, a full-size bed is just so much more convenient when you're dealing with a truck.
The Dakota is an interesting truck in the world of trucks when it came out, because it originally came out in 1987. We had an 87 with my father's corporation with a standard cab 8-foot bed on it. And it was bigger than the S10s and the Ford Rangers of the day, but it wasn't quite a full-size truck. And it made sense to the market. Now the market's changed where there is no mini truck left. So everything's went to this mid-size truck, but the Dakotas went away. The Rangers went away, soon to return. Why would you go out and buy a Colorado or a Canyon that's a little bit smaller, gets the same gas mileage as the big truck, and costs almost the same amount. I think at one point in time there was a market. The mini trucks were extremely hot, especially for, I think, me and Will. Me, I guess I'm 10 years older than Will. I had my, mini trucks in high school, lowered and convertible and V8 swaps and all that fun stuff that we used to do. And Will and I went and relived that 10 years ago with our S10s. And I've got friends doing that now, buying Nissans and stuff to relive those days. But once those days went by, everybody was into that full-size truck. You're right, Dodge radically restyled their truck. Ford did a nice progression. Chevrolet has done a nice progression. In 88, when the Chevrolet restyled from the square body to the more aerodynamic truck, that really softened the pickup truck and made it look less like a work truck, which, again, may have helped that move to the everyday consumer rather than the contractor.
Yeah, and you talk about something interesting, which is what the market is wanting, and I guess the question becomes right now, with the Colorado being out and becoming pretty popular from what I'm reading and hearing, and the reemergence of the Ranger, what looks like it's going to be reintroduced pretty soon. Is the market moving back to the medium-sized truck? The smaller, what we in a GM family would call the S series truck, the small series truck. Is the reason we're seeing the resurgence and the rebirth of these trucks, is that suggesting that we're going to see the market move to that?
In my truck use and my truck demand, like I said, I went from a full-size F-150 to a Ford Edge, and I get by with a small trailer. I could easily deal with a smaller vehicle. My girlfriend drives a Mini, and then we have a Velociter also. She likes that smaller car. She wasn't comfortable in a bigger car. She's always grown up in small cars. So I think there's a market for that. We've all been at the grocery store or one of the big box stores, and you've got the driver who can't park their Escalade or their F-150 or their Dodge Ram. Or
I do that so I don't get door dings.
So you're that guy.
But the nice thing about having the Mini is I can usually still park next to you and still be in my spot.
Yeah,
but you're the guy at the big box store that we see out in the parking lot trying to cram a refrigerator box in the back of it.
Yeah. And plus you're driving a Mini.
There's nothing wrong with a Mini. A Mini is a wonderful car with a ton of room in it. And I've heard, and I don't know personally, that even Penn Jillette for years drove a Mini. And we know how big. I mean, Penn Jillette's like 6'8" or something, and he's a big man. I've now heard he drives a Nissan Leaf. He is an odd man, and I'm sure it's very comical, which goes along with his career. But
yeah, but the problem with the modern Mini is it's like 2 times bigger than the original Mini. The whole purpose is kind of gone.
No, the modern Mini is 2 times bigger than the Mini they sold 5 years ago, which was already 3 times bigger than. But it's still an intimidatingly small car to drive down the road, or next to that person in that F-150 that should probably be in, as you said, an S-Series pickup truck or such. But we're Americans. We like it big, and we love our, what? I don't even know. What are we paying for gas now? $2 a gallon? $2.50?
Yeah, about $2.
$2 a gallon, yeah.
Sorry for your California listeners.
Yeah. We've got the resurgence or reemergence of the mid-size pickup, the whatever we want to refer to it as. How about the emergence of the all-aluminum pickups, like the new Fords? What are we feeling about those?
I don't think it matters, again, what we feel. It's now, those are up for fuel economy standards, and while Chevrolet is running ads showing how bad the F-150 does in a work situation, and social media is full of pictures of how bad F-150s look after crashes, rumor has it by 19 or 20, Chevy's going to have an aluminum pickup. They're doing it to save weight, and I think, I'm not a metallurgist, but I think you can build just as strong as a truck in a crash, and that's all they care about is crash. They don't, you really don't care about vehicle repair. You care about the occupant surviving to go out and buy another truck to replace the one they totaled.
I mean, I think they need to have it as an option, to be honest with you, because if I have an option for an aluminum bed or a steel bed, I'm going with a steel bed because we use our trucks on a regular basis. I mean, mine's sitting outside with half of a pecan tree cut up in it, and I wasn't easy throwing them in there.
But what is your bed inside? Do you have a rhino liner? Do you have a plastic bed liner? Or do you just leave it painted steel?
I just leave it alone. I don't put anything in them, and then when you get ready to sell them, you rhino line them.
So
that's
never,
that's
never
how you,
buy a
that's how you
truck
do that.
from Will.
Well, at least you use your truck as trucks. So many of them you're always told if you don't have a bed liner in when you trade, oh, you should have had a bed liner. I never put a bed liner in them either. I take a little bit more care, but I don't care if I scratch it or such. But started to use the plastic bed liners with an aluminum bed, you've reduced the rust. I mean, granted, you can still get aluminum, still does have corrosion issues. I think you end up with just about as strong of a bed. Granted, if you are taking a bobcat load of bricks and dumping it in an aluminum bed to a steel bed, I think the ad might be semi-accurate with that. You might damage the bed a little bit more.
But I think it does go back. The reason I threw it out there, I think, is because it again goes back to the fact that this is in my opinion, and you guys can agree disagree, but it goes back again to the fact that the pickup truck, especially the 1500 series, the 150 series, has become more of a personal use family vehicle than any type of work truck. So, again, it's going back to it doesn't maybe need to be as strong or as durable in some work situations, crash test, all that. It's safe, but they're not, maybe we don't need to worry as much about somebody dumping a ton of bricks in the back, off of a Bobcat. And I think that's kind of what my opinion and my view on it is that it's just showing that the truck in some ways is looked at again more as personal family use.
Yeah, definitely. Americans have gotten kind of soft over the years. People don't do as much of their own work. They'd rather sit on their couch and play video games and watch TV and pay somebody to come out there and do it. So, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that.
Ford, with the introduction of the new F250, which is designed more for your work person now, that's now an aluminum body truck too. So they're just going that way. I mean, you can save 1,000 pounds. I mean, you get a better performing vehicle, and we'll touch on this a little bit. Ford's seems to be obsessed with making you run 2.5, 3.5 liter turbocharged motors in their vehicles. Granted, the F250 is a little different, but does that help the vehicle perform more to that 5 liter V8 standard, as opposed because it is 1,000 pounds lighter and it does aid into the fuel economy? I just think it's a losing battle. Everything's going to go aluminum because it makes the vehicle lighter and makes for better EPA numbers, and that's what drives the market anymore. They have to build to these unobtainable laws. So.
Well, it's also a lot easier to shape aluminum than it is steel. So they're saving money on their dies and everything else when they're stamping these panels. They're not going to have the die repair. They can probably make them out of a cheaper material just because aluminum is so much easier to shape than sheet metal as well.
Now, that is a good point that the production costs could be low, and these pickup trucks are the highest profit vehicles that most of these manufacturers sell.
Yep. I know I've attended SEMA for the last, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years in a row. Every year, what grows the most is the sport truck aftermarket showcase out there. The first year I went out there was several trucks outside, and then every year there's more and more and more and more and more. And last year the whole, I think it was like the north side of the parking lot outside was nothing but trucks. They have their own haul. Dang near half of SEMA is sport truck stuff. So, that could be helping, drive the market as well, is the aftermarket, having so many different options for every truck out there to personalize it and make it their own.
I think the aftermarket's driven by the market, though. If people are buying the trucks, the aftermarket's going to follow suit. I mean,
Yeah.
you go back to the 70s, vanning was big, so I'm sure there were a lot of van companies out there with porthole windows and shag carpeting, which
Yeah.
don't exist now. We've talked recently. A friend of mine building the Nissans talked about making it a convertible truck because he always wanted a convertible truck back in '90. I had one. I paid $100 then for my kit, and he told me, "Oh, the same kit's still available. It's $399 now." And like you said, nobody's buying them. So
Nope.
there's not that many people making convertible pickups anymore. As cool as they are, I want to go on record saying that.
Oh,
So,
Model A Roadster pickups. Just saying.
there we
They were
go.
around in the 30s, and they were pretty sweet.
They started then. You can pick up a Dakota convertible for $4,000.
Yeah, you got a Dakota convertible too.
I detect jealousy in that voice.
I was picking up sarcasm, not jealousy.
Subtle differences.
But I think it's interesting, going back to what you had talked about a little bit ago, John. It's with the aluminum end of things, and the market is going towards it for fuel economy and weight savings and all of these things. It's interesting to see it happen. In some of my research I've done in my career so far, in the teens and 20s, there were a lot of tests going on and kind of experiments going on with aluminum in the trucking industries. And there were some truck companies playing around with casting the various components of the sprung and unsprung parts of the chassis in aluminum and running them on their trucks to see how they would hold up under the weight loads, under the stress of the turns and all these things. And of course, at the time, aluminum, the idea of aluminum and alloys of the aluminum, just the technology and the science wasn't good enough to really do great aluminum that was strong and really, really solid. And we finally have the technology and the ability to do some really cool things with some really, in the end, much more durable and safe aluminum.
I was going to ask for the third episode in a row, was I going to say it's nothing's new today that hasn't been tried in the past.
Exactly.
Aluminum in the early 1900s was almost a precious metal. I think it was trading for close to the value of gold. It was so hard to process and so hard to come by, and you could not get the pure aluminums that we can get today and work with. And the structure, I mean, I get confused all the time when I'm working with aluminum alloys. Do I want 3032? Do I want 1100? Do I want 6062? It's just, I've always got to go look at my notes. What do I want? What am I making? What am I going to shape? We're talking about the major manufacturers with their trucks and their full size, and they keep getting bigger and bigger, and there's this kind of underground market. I don't know how many of you pay attention to, I'm going to call it the kit car replica industry, but there's a guy out there as a company called Smith Performance. He was formerly as one of the partners in Factory 5, and he's had a very popular conversion kit the last couple of years. He started with Volkswagens, where you could take a Rabbit or a Jetta and kind of cut up the back, and for this $3,000 kit, make it into a El Camino mini pickup again. He's now expanded the line to include the Dodge Charger, and I just saw pictures of his. He's doing like an Audi A4 conversion. I don't know why he doesn't do it like something cool like a Mini. So there seems to be, he sells these kits. I mean, kits that I'm being asked to cut up my car, paint my car, do all this work myself. In my opinion, he's selling these kits pretty briskly. I can't remember what the numbers are. He makes a couple hundred kits and sells them $3,000 a pop, but he sells out of every production run. Is there a movement back to the smaller pickup, or is that just a cool thing to do?
I've seen a couple of those, and they're actually really pretty cool. I mean, does it give you a pickup truck? I mean, not necessarily. I mean, you could still haul more in the back of that than you could if it had a trunk.
Well, for me and my woodworking hobby, it gives me the ability to run to the lumber yard, get a couple of boards, or run to the store and buy a saw and throw it in the back, and
Yep,
it's
exactly.
a little bit more use. I think he took a big hit with the Dieselgate scandal out of a Volkswagen, because the little TDI Jetta with that pickup truck thing would have made for a heck of a vehicle.
Well,
And
in Australia, they're still making utes.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's yeah. I was going to mention that. It's interesting that the American market versus the Australian market, where you have the Ute. We had the Ranchero, we had the El Camino. They're gone.
had the
Um,
Rampage.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you even had the Subaru. What was that? The Baja. That was the Ute
No,
style.
the Brat, the Subaru Brat with the two seats in the back.
Yeah, I
Or,
think so.
oh,
Well, then
you're
I think the Baja was a
it
Ute
was
as well.
it was the
yeah,
Baja. Yeah, it was the
yeah.
Baja.
The Baja
Yeah,
was the recent 4-door one. I was thinking
Yeah.
of the one that had rust problems from the late 70s, 80s.
yeah.
It had the
On on
little T tops in it and things.
Yeah,
on
but
on, on
it's interesting that one market can bear it, and have great success. I mean, even Holden, which is part of GM's Australian line, had a Ute. I don't remember the name of the Holden Ute that was being built, but there's an American company with an Australian division.
I
You know,
believe Ford also builds a Ute in Australia, but we saw what happened when they tried to bring the GTO over, which was really a Holden, or the
the Monero. Let's not
yeah.
let's not talk about that. Let's
Yeah.
let's just steer clear of that whole thing. I have a lot of opinions on it. That can be for another show.
That can be another show. But I think the market's there. It's just it's all economies of scale here, and it already failed. So do they want to risk the money in bringing these things back? And General Motors has a way of, okay, we'll do it, and then they take what we ask for and change it to Americanize it, and we didn't ask for an Americanized version. We want what was there. Let me ask I just had this conversation recently with a friend about the Raptor. I'm somebody who liked my little Red Express. I love the SRT 10 Ram. I like lowered vehicles. I have no need in the world for a lifted 4x4. I'm never going to run the Baja. But if I could have a Raptor, even with the 3.5 EcoBoost 6 that I can tune to 600 horsepower and sit the thing 4 inches off the ground, why won't anybody build me my truck? Where's my two-wheel drive Hellcat?
Hey, you never know; it might be coming. But I will say I grew up in Michigan, grew up in the north, and if I could have a Raptor in my driveway tonight, I'd take it. Lifted 4-wheel drives. I've got a soft spot for them.
I grew up in Illinois, and I drove home one night in my here's one for you guys: 1980 Ford Courier with a step-side bed with a 231 V6 in it that we decided to lower one day, and we took the springs out, and my buddy, who ironically is building the Nissan now, said, "What do we want? 2 or 2.5 coils?" We chopped 2 coils off, and good thing we didn't go 2.5, because I only had about 1.5 inches of ground clearance, plowing snow with that thing. So you can get around with your two-wheel drive overpowered, pickup.
I didn't say you couldn't. I just said you could look cooler in a lifted four-wheel drive.
Nothing
We
is nothing's cooler than the guy stuck on the railroad tracks in his lowrider.
we uh we plowed some snow in a two-wheel drive K5 Blazer in Kansas in the early 2000s too.
Late '90s, I believe
But,
that was.
yeah, yeah, late 90s. Yep. So
You guys just love giving your age away, don't you?
Hey,
yeah, but
when
John's
you're
got
when you're 26 and you look as good as me,
well, John's got 10 years on me. We were just in college at the same time.
hey, when I get my AARP card, I'll be buying.
John's just going to claim that Will was a very advanced student.
Advanced at I don't know. We won't go there.
I was a student, but advanced is not the correct adjective.
So we all agree trucks are pretty cool. We like trucks. And it's going to be interesting to see what the market does with the truck in America.
I don't think there's any stopping the truck market. They keep getting nicer. They keep getting plusher. They are, like I said earlier, the luxury car of the world, or of America today. Cadillac didn't have decent luck. Lincoln didn't have decent luck with the super luxury trucks, but why would you want one with a Lincoln badge when you can go buy a King Ranch with, like Will said, heated and air-conditioned front and rear seats with massage and refrigerators in them? And I mean, you can get a truck any way you want it. And if you can't, you can buy it and somebody will sell you the parts to make it the way you want it.
Well, we hook up to our 48-foot trailer. We throw through two cars in it, and we drive to Las Vegas or California from Alabama, and we're not wore out when we get there. We're going through East Texas or West Texas with the cruise set on 80 miles an hour, and we're kicking back and enjoying the ride, and you don't have to fight it. It's just smooth sailing, and and not getting bad fuel mileage. So yeah, I don't think there's any stopping the truck market, and it's a easy way for us to pull our cars in a comfortable way.
I think even if we get $4 a gallon gas again, the market will correct itself for a year or two, but we'll get used to paying $4 a gallon for gas, and the truck market will pick back up because this is America. We want bigger, and we want comfort. We want what is it? America.
And when gas prices get to $4 a gallon, I'll be driving my '61 Falcon a lot more.
Well, when fuel gets $4 or $5 a gallon, is that going to bring in an electric truck? Maybe.
Well, GM already has hybrid trucks,
Yeah.
or have played with the hybrid trucks.
But like a 3500 pulling a trailer. I mean, are we going to progress that quick where we will see that?
I want to say we will see it in our lifetime, or our expected lifetime. They're already working with aerodynamically designed electric semis. All of its trickle down. If they can do it in a rig and expect to go cross country or even 2-3 states pulling 80,000 pounds, there's no reason that I would say you wouldn't see a 3500 Chevy that was electric. It's just going to be a really, really hard sell for the first 100,000 of them or so.
Oh yeah.
Because when you're in the middle of West Texas and nothing's around you for 100 miles but rattlesnakes and scorpions, and your batteries go dead, is when you're towing.
Common theme, no one, it's hard to get people to trust new technology. There's always that barrier to break. So, but I think you're right, John. If we can prove that a semi pulling a 53-foot trailer with however many 1,000 pounds in it can make it across 3-4 states, whatever they can figure out, I don't see any chance that we wouldn't start seeing pickup trucks that are electrified, full electric vehicles that are able to pull, Will's 40 48-foot trailer that he just mentioned, get him to Texas comfortably.
Why it's not in the RV industry, where you put the electric motors on the wheels and you have the electric system and you have an onboard generator that is charging, and the vehicles are electrically operated. Yes, you still have a gas generator, but it seems to be efficient in the locomotive industry. I don't know how it would play out in the real world. I'm not that much of an engineer, and I've never put pen to paper to see if I could convert a Prevost to electric.
Just going to throw it out there, but that's the way a number of the early hybrids at the turn of the century in the early 1900s were actually done. I've mentioned in some of our other episodes, or one of our other episodes, Ferdinand Porsche's Semper Vivis. If you get a chance to look that up, it's 2 gasoline single-cylinder engines in the body of the vehicle, and it's electric hub motors that are driving the vehicle. And it's a whole hybrid setup that he designed. The Andrew Riker here in America played around with hub motors in some of his electric vehicles. There's actually a Riker electric truck that played around with some of that technology back in the early 1900s.
Wow, that's cool.
So I guess we didn't decide whether or not or discuss the collector car hobby in relation to trucks. We just discussed trucks in the real world, and they're collectible, they're cool today. You can do a heck of a lot with them.
Hey, you know what? Why don't we just do part 2 next week on the collector car world of trucks? Just carry this conversation on.
Good with that.
We might see if that happens or where we go, but at some point we definitely will revisit trucks. I mean, there's a lot to haul in that, pun intended.
I've seen a poster that said something like that.
I only can think of a Volvo ad with a Lotus and that, but I'm not very creative at this late hour. So
late? It's not late yet.
You're not
I'm
as
just
old.
Getting started.
You guys aren't as old as me. I had dinner at 4:00. I'm getting a little bit hungry.
Ooh, early bird special.
You bet. I'm cheap. I don't throw anything away, and we just determined I was old, and now I'm depressed.
Hey, we'll come up here and work second shift with me, and we'll have fun.
Why would I want to work second shift? I try not to even work first.
Well, I said have fun. Do you know what that is, John?
I think for John,
I was gonna...
for John, fun. I'll leave it at this. For John, fun involves wood. That's all I'm gonna say.
So, I guess we will wrap it up about here. We're a little bit longer than we normally want to run. I think we've definitely discussed the viability of trucks and acknowledged in our opinions they're here to stay. So unless anybody else has closing words, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I guess that means there's no closing words. Help fund this podcast. We're doing it for fun. We're doing it. If you enjoy it, throw a couple of bucks our way. We'll check us out on Patreon. We've got different reward levels there. Some of those would be personal consultations that kind of go along more with our labor rates. They're kind of aggressive goals, but there's also entry level, and you can get one of the first edition No Driving Gloves stickers or t-shirts, depending where you go. Just wanted to mention that, get that out there. Of course, we're on iTunes, Google Play, said YouTube. I think we've set up on SoundCloud, so we should be out there for you to listen to anywhere. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for this evening, and we'll talk to you later. If you have questions or comments, email us at nodrivinggloves@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to No Driving Gloves using your favorite podcast catcher. Follow No Driving Gloves, one word, on Facebook or Instagram. And most of all, please check out our page on Patreon where you can help keep our tires rolling.